Hi, writers. It's Robin. I am a teacher and a children's book author, and I'm going to teach you everything that I know about writing that I learned from my own editors at HarperCollins and Houghton Mifflin and Disney. And I'm going to teach you step by step. And right now, we're in the middle of a series on figurative language. So let's take a look at the definition of figurative language to remind ourselves of what it means. Think about that base word, figurative, and it essentially means you're figuring something out rather than saying it directly, which is kind of fun for your reader because it's like a puzzle that they have to solve. They have to connect two things really quickly in their head, and when it's clear to them, it's actually enjoyable. The four types that we've been focusing on are similes, metaphors, hyperbole, and personification. And today we're going to look at number 3, hyperbole, which is a fun word to say. So hyperbole is figurative language that is over the top. And we do this on purpose. It creates an effect. Usually it's kind of for humor, but it can also be for drama. So you're going to look at the definition first. Hyperbole is an obvious and intentional exaggeration used to create emphasis on drama or humor. So it's not literal. So if you were writing a piece of figurative language and it creates a question for your reader where they're like, oh, do they mean that for real? Or is that like if it makes a question in their head, you need to go back and change it. I'm going to show you how to make hyperbole so that it's super clear to your reader that this was intentional. So let's suppose you started with right here, my backpack is really heavy. That's just kind of a description of a backpack. That doesn't create anything in your head. But if you said my backpack weighs a ton, that's a phrase that we often hear, weighs a ton. So it's kind of an easy way in for you to understand what hyperbole is. But if you imagine what a ton is and how much that actually weighs, clearly I couldn't hold that on my back. I don't think anyone could. So right here, this is true and this is realistic. But this one, the backpack is exaggerated for an effect that it was just super heavy. And so they're comparing it to something that can't possibly be true. There's 3 steps to writing hyperbole. So you're going to start with something that you want to describe, right? And now you're going to think about how does this object or this event or this thing make you feel? And then is that feeling that you get from it kind of extreme? So whenever you notice in your writing that you want to write the word really, stop and ask yourself, could I change really hot, really tired, really scared? Could I change it into hyperbole? So now you will exaggerate it to the max as far as you can. So let's start with something we're going to describe. Let's say you're going to describe homework. And the way that you feel about it is that it is never ending. So how are we going to exaggerate that? You could pause here for a second if you want to talk about it or think about it. All right, I had a mountain of homework that took me 600 years to finish. So first we're talking about homework that's a mountain, so that's visual. And then also not just that it took me all night to finish it or it took me 100 years to finish it. The specifics of saying the word 600 make it a stronger piece of hyperbole because the reader can then realize like, oh, this is done on intentionally and on purpose. Here's a quiz. So which one of these is hyperbole? Is it A, I waited more than 10 minutes for the bus? B, I waited forever for the bus? Or C, I waited so long for the bus? Which one is hyperbole? If you said B, you are correct. So if you waited forever, then you would not be alive, which is a whole other conversation, but you want to exaggerate the amount of time. So we're going to glow some up. Let's do it before. So I was so tired, I went to bed before dessert. Now that might be an exaggeration for you. You might be the type of person who would never go to bed before dessert, but your reader might not know that. And if it leaves a question in their head of whether that actually happened or didn't happen, then it's not quite strong enough for hyperbole. You could have said, I was so tired, I could have slept for 1,000 years. So that gets a little more specific about time, and you realize, okay, they're really tired. But let's go one step further. What if you said, I was so tired, I could have slept through the ice ages? So now you pick a time in history that we know was a long amount of time. So being specific with that particular exaggeration is going to make it a lot stronger, and it won't make it sound so cliche. We've talked about that in previous videos. Cliche means it's something that's been overused and readers get kind of tired of it. So try this one. The room was hot. I want you to exaggerate the heat and make it kind of fun. So pause here, and you're going to write your own piece of hyperbole and then come back and we'll look at some examples. So you could have said the room was hotter than the surface of the sun. So think of other things that are hot. I was sweating buckets before I even sat down. So how you react to the heat. Let me go back one. The room was boiling and I was melting into the floor. So let's see it in action in Percy Jackson. So it says, my shield was the size of an NBA blackboard. Sorry, not blackboard, backboard. It was 1,000,000 degrees. So see how he's using the specifics there of something that's super big, right? And being really specific about the backboard being in the NBA. So try and get into really specifics when you do your piece of hyperbole. Here's your challenge. You're going to pick a topic. You can use any one of these three and use hyperbole to describe it. So you're picking a boring day. So you're going to really exaggerate the boringness, or the rain of a day, or a long run. How do you feel about that run? Exaggerate it. And then when you revise, ask yourself, is this exaggerated? Meaning, is it impossible for this to be actually true? And do I do this for an emphasis on drama or humor? All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. And teachers, look below for additional resources and practice with this skill.